You're on with Slate and Jury, and if you're tuning in on the commute, on the rower, or in the dog park pretending to throw the ball but actually just scrolling, welcome to the 3CIR podcast. I'm Joel Slate Cairns.
And I'm Ryan Jury Delaney. Good to have you with us. We keep it real, we keep it useful, and we keep it focused on helping you take your lived experience and turn it into momentum. That's what 3CIR is all about.
At the core of 3CIR are 5 tenets we lived back in uniform and still live today: courage, commitment, camaraderie, integrity, and respect. Not just poster words, they're how we operate, who we work with, and why we show up. We're an Aussie online education outfit founded by veterans, serving veterans, emergency services, and civilian legends who want to move forward.
Especially if you're looking at recognition of prior learning, RPL, it's the bridge between what you've done and the paper that proves it. If you've been a section commander, a paramedic, a security team lead, or you've run a business in the real world, that should count. Our job is to help you get credit for the heavy lifting you've already done, then top up with online learning where it makes sense.
Today's topic sits right at the crossroads of trust and transition. There's a bit of news history in the vet world that's still a valuable lesson. The Australian Skills Quality Authority, ASQA, cancelled the registrations of 3 Get Qualified Australia entities back in 2017. We're going to unpack what that meant, what it still means for anyone navigating qualifications now, and how you protect yourself in this space.
And we'll make it practical. If you were caught up in that situation, or you ever find yourself with a provider that suddenly goes dark, what do you do next? We'll map the steps, we'll talk credit transfer, we'll talk RPL, and we've got a little teaser later on about turning Green Beret mission discipline into entrepreneur vision. That's next episode, but I'll drop a breadcrumb or two.
Stick around for that. But first, the ASQA piece. So here's the gist without the legal jargon. In February 2017, ASQA announced it was cancelling the registrations of 3 Get Qualified Australia provider entities. Those decisions were set to kick in March. The providers went to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal and asked for a stay, basically a pause, while the decision was reviewed.
ASQA opposed the pause based on public interest. The AAT said no to the stay on March 10th, so the cancellations took effect right away. The review itself could still continue, but the operations were stopped. That's a very big deal for students in the pipeline.
Right. And if you were a student, the official message was contact your training provider for more info. Meanwhile, ASQA would work with those entities to secure student records. Once secured, students could request copies of their records from ASQA. That matters because your records are your ticket to recognition, whether it's RPL or credit transfer into another RTO.
If you've ever had a provider close or get cancelled, you know it feels like someone kicked over the beehive. Your first thought is, do I have to start again? And your second is, where the heck are my documents? So let's make this super clear. Your evidence has power. Statements of attainment, transcripts, training plans, workplace logs, supervisor references, even emails confirming completed units. That bundle is your leverage.
Exactly. If the provider's cancelled, the regulator's goal is to secure those records. You can request copies. Then you take that evidence to a competent, active RTO and say, here's what I've done. At 3CIR, we see this a lot with RPL. People show up with a mixed bag of proof, part completed quals, real-world experience, and a healthy dose of self-doubt. We map it to a training package and make the pathway clear.
Let's talk about that mapping for a second. Say you were going for a Diploma of Leadership and Management. You finished 5 units with Provider A. You've got statements of attainment. Then Provider A disappears. That doesn't mean those 5 units vanished. We can credit transfer those into the equivalent units with us if they match. Then we RPL the rest based on your experience leading teams, doing performance plans, risk management, the works. If there's a gap, we train online to fill it. That's what competent RPL should feel like. Join the dots, don't send you back to square one, right?
And it's not just leadership. We've got folks moving into WHS, HR, security, business, marketing, government, project management. If you've led a patrol or a crew, built SOPs, written incident reports, run debriefs, managed budgets or rosters, you're already doing half the practical evidence those quals require. You might not call it that, but the competency language is there. RPL translates it.
Now, I can hear someone asking, hang on, how do I know who to trust? And I get it. A cancellation story can spook people. You don't want your qualification resting on quicksand. Here's the straight advice. Do a quick check on a provider's RTO status. You can look them up on the National Register. See that the qualification you want is on their scope. Make sure the contact details are legit. If you smell waffle or you can't get a straight answer about units of competency, step back.
Also, be wary of anyone promising instant qualifications with no assessment, no evidence, and no questions. RPL is robust. It respects your experience, but it still requires verification. If you've run a team, we'll look for artifacts like meeting minutes, schedules, risk assessments, and we'll talk to referees. It isn't a hoop jump, it's a fair mapping. If someone tells you it's done in an hour with zero documentation, that's a red flag.
Another hint is the human factor. If you're in the intake stage with us, we'll walk you through what we expect, give you an RPL checklist, tell you how long it takes, what support you get, and what happens if there's a gap. You should feel like you've got a teammate who speaks normal English, not a gatekeeper with acronyms and a timer.
And it's worth saying, the ASQA decisions we're referencing happened in 2017, but the lessons are timeless. Quality control exists to keep standards up and protect students. If a provider gets cancelled, it's not the apocalypse for your career. It's a detour. You gather your records, you engage with a reputable RTO, and you keep moving.
Let's get practical for those who like a plan. If you're caught in a provider closure situation, do this. 1, collect every document you've got. 2, request your records from the regulator if they've secured them. 3, talk to a provider like 3CIR that can do RPL and credit transfer. 4, ask for a clear plan of units completed, units to RPL and units to train. 5, protect your time and money by using written quotes and training plans you can understand.
That's the checklist I wish someone had handed me years ago. Now, I want to shift gears and talk mindset, because qualifications are paper, yes, but they're also identity. When your provider implodes, it can feel personal, like your momentum's been yanked. This is where those 3CIR tenets matter. Courage to ask for help, commitment to stick the process, camaraderie to lean on a community that gets it, integrity to do it right, respect for yourself and the skills you've earned under pressure.
You know, we had a listener write in who went through something similar. He was midway through a Cert IV in work health and safety when his RTO folded. He was deflated, thought everything was gone. He had a folder full of incident investigations he's done as a security supervisor, toolbox, talk records, a risk register he maintained. It was all gold. He just didn't realize we used RPL to tick off most of the units, did 2 targeted gap trainings online, and he wrapped up. He emailed 3 months later saying that piece of paper was the difference between being stuck on nights and stepping up into a coordinator role with better pay and no more 2 a.m. kebabs.
The famous midnight kebab pivot, I know it well. And here's another angle. Transition isn't only military to civilian. Fireys going into WHS, AMBOSS going into leadership and HR, security folks going into project management, or business owners finally formalizing what they've learnt the hard way. RPL is the translator. It turns the language of doing into the language of credentials.
Speaking of languages, the thing people forget is that training packages are written in very specific competency speak, performance criteria, knowledge evidence, assessment conditions on your own. That can feel alien. With a team like ours, it becomes plain English. You tell us you've been running pre-start briefs, updating JSAs, handling corrective actions, which sounds like you're just fixing stuff on the job. We hear a cluster of units in the WHS package that you're probably already competent in.
Let's loop back to that ASQA process for a minute, because I want people to hear the logic. When the AAT rejected the stay, it meant the cancellations came into immediate effect. That's a safeguard. It's not about punishing students. It's about making sure operations pause while a review happens, so no one's enrolling into a situation that's under a cloud. Meanwhile, the records get secured. It's the system trying to contain damage while keeping pathways open.
And the bit that often gets overlooked, you can ask for help from the regulator. That's what the announcement at the time said. Ask for your records. If you've never done that, it's not complicated. You'll be asked for ID, you'll specify the provider and the course, and if ASQA has the records, they'll send you what they've got. If they don't, your personal evidence still matters. Keep those emails, PDFs, screenshots, pay slips showing your role, rosters that show your responsibilities. Don't underestimate a well-kept notebook.
On notebooks, I used to carry a tiny green one in my cargo pocket, and it had everything from radio call signs to a badly drawn map to a list of learning goals I wrote when I couldn't sleep. If I had it now, it would probably qualify as reflective practice evidence for half a diplomas.
You're not wrong. Reflective practice is a real thing, and it reminds me, we have a bunch of videos up that break down different fields like leadership, HR, WHS, security, business, marketing, government, and project management. If you're trying to figure out what path matches your experience, those videos are great for scanning the terrain. You can hear us unpack what employers look for, what the units feel like in the real world, and what kind of evidence helps.
If you're more of a watch and go operator, queue up a couple of those after this episode, use them as a compass, then jump onto our RPL assessment tool. It's free to start. You tick the boxes that match your history, upload a few pieces of evidence, and our team reaches out with a plan. And a plan is everything. No plan, you drift. With a plan, even if it changes on contact, you've got momentum.
Momentum is a funny thing. People think it's speed. It's not. It's direction with consistency. When a provider shuts, your direction feels lost. But if you keep even a slow pace on the right heading, you get there. The big traps are panic buys and ghosting your own goals. Take a breath, check your evidence, get advice, and move one square at a time.
I want to share an example that hits close to home. A mate of mine did 8 years in Army logistics. He was basically running a small business in uniform, fleet management, inventory control, staff scheduling, procurement. But on paper, when he got out, he had a discharge certificate and a lot of LinkedIn buzzwords. He nearly got sucked into a quick fix provider promising a diploma in a weekend. No evidence needed. He rang me, we put the brakes on, and he came through 3 CIR. We used RPL to recognize the logistics work and topped him up into a diploma of business with some online units in marketing and financial acumen. Today, he's a project officer in local government. No detour into disappointment.
The weekend diploma is like the diet pill of qualifications. If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably going to leave you hungry and a bit jittery.
Let's give people a taste of what a proper RPL conversation sounds like. Say you're applying for a certificate IV in human resources. We'll ask, have you conducted interviews? Have you documented position descriptions? Have you run onboarding sessions? Managed performance conversations? Drafted or applied policies? If you've done that, we start pulling your evidence. Interview panels you sat on, induction checklists, performance review artifacts, training records. Then we map it line by line against the unit descriptors. You can hear the gears clicking into place.
And for WHS lovers, you'd hear us ask, have you assisted with risk assessments, led a safety meeting, investigated an incident, maintained hazard registers? You pull up your minutes, your corrective action plans, your training sign-ons, your JSAs, and we build a case for competency. The vibe should always be collaborative. It's not a gotcha. It's a let's prove what you've done and fill the gaps with the right learning.
Right now, someone's thinking, okay, but what if I don't have much on paper? Then we get creative and we get thorough. Third-party reports from supervisors, stat decks where appropriate, direct conversations focused on scenarios you've actually handled, work samples you can recreate or demonstrate. And yes, sometimes we'll say, we need you to complete this piece of training because the evidence just isn't there. That's integrity. We're not passing you on a handshake. We're getting you competent.
Speaking of integrity, we should applaud the system for this. The cancellations back in 2017 showed that regulators will pull the pin when it's warranted. That tells students and employers that the paper means something. So if you've ever worried, is this qualification respected? Ask yourself if the provider can explain their assessments, if their trainers know the field, and if they're happy to show you how your evidence maps. Good providers love that conversation.
And here's a simple script you can use on a discovery call with any RTO. What is your scope for this qualification? Can we credit transfer my completed units? What do you require for RPL evidence? What support do I get if there are gaps? How long do you expect it to take? Not in fantasy land, but in reality. If the answers are clear, you're on the right track.
Also, ask who's on the other end. Are they educators and assessors or just sales? Sales is fine, we've all got to keep the lights on, but you want access to the people who will actually help you compile evidence and understand assessments. It's like calling a mechanic and getting a florist. Lovely chat, wrong expertise.
Now, I promised we'd weave in a teaser for next week. Green Beret Mission to Entrepreneur Vision. That's about bringing the mission planning, the grit, and the team mindset from special operations into building a business. If you've ever felt like your military brain doesn't fit the business world, you'll want to hear this. Spoiler, it fits better than you think.
And I'll connect it to today's theme like this. In special operations, you learn to control what you can. When a plan blows up, you shift to the next action. Provider closed. Next action is evidence gathering, then triage your options, then move. No panic, no drama, just deliberate steps.
Before we leave the ASQA story behind, I want to make sure we cover one more point. Timeframes. If you were in the middle of a course in 2017 with one of those providers, you might still be sitting on half-completed work and wondering if it applies in 2025. Things change. Training packages get updated, but don't assume your past is irrelevant. We can often align your previous work to the current versions, or we can give you a bridge plan to update. Bring it to us and we'll tell you exactly how much carries over.
And internationally, for folks listening outside Australia, the principle travels. If you're in New Zealand, the UK, the US, the Middle East, working in security or emergency response, your Aussie quals can be legible, and your experience is always legible. We've helped veterans and first responders from all over document and formalise what they bring. Reach out and we'll talk about mapping in your context.
Let's punch in a few quick stories from the 3CIR trenches. Leadership and management. We had a former Navy petty officer who thought she'd need 2 years of study. We RPL'd her on team leadership, communication, operational planning, and conflict resolution. She did targeted online training on financial literacy and marketing fundamentals, finished in months, and landed an operations role in a tech company using agile methods that looked suspiciously like the ops rhythms she'd built at sea.
WHS, we worked with a firefighter who had mountains of real-world experience but zero paper. We mapped emergency response procedures, risk control, safety leadership. The gaps were around formal incident reporting frameworks and legislative nuance, 2 online modules later, plus a practical assessment, and he had the Cert IV and the confidence to apply for a safety advisor role at a construction firm.
Project management, a private security team leader who moved from guarding to coordinating multi-site deployments. He had rosters, SOPs, risk plans, comms plans, stakeholder updates, and a war chest of lessons learned. We built him into a diploma of project management with a few small training pieces on scope management and procurement. His next job title actually said the word project.
Marketing and business, a veteran who ran a gym. He thought, I'm just a trainer. But he'd built a client pipeline, negotiated supplier contracts, ran social media campaigns, did basic bookkeeping, and wrote staff training manuals. Boom. RPL across business operations and marketing, plus an online finance unit to deepen the numbers. Now he consults for 3 gyms and does school programs on weekends.
The point isn't that RPL is magic. The point is your experience has weight. If you present it right, assessed ethically, it opens doors. And if you get disrupted by a provider cancellation or any other curveball, your experience still remains. That's the anchor.
You mentioned ethics, and it makes me think of something subtle. When you're in a provider relationship, you should feel your dignity being respected. No pressure sales, no shame about gaps, no mystery fees. If you're getting weird vibes, listen to them. Then come talk to us. Our intake calls are basically conversations between people who've been in the arena. We're not here to trick you. We're here to map your path and walk it with you.
And because we're veterans, we get the tempo shifts. Sometimes you've got bandwidth this month and then the next month you're flat out on a new contract. Our online model flexes. That's by design. Camaraderie includes meeting you where you are.
All right, Slate, hit them with the quick start version. Someone's listening right now, wants to move, has maybe been burned before, maybe not. What do they do today?
Today, do 3 things. 1, jot down the top 5 responsibilities you've had in the last 3 years. Make it gritty and specific, not vague. 2, gather 5 pieces of evidence that prove those responsibilities. Think reports, rosters, emails, photos, certifications, anything that shows you in action. 3, jump on 3CIR's site, start a free RPL assessment, and mention in your notes if you've got prior study, including partial completions from past providers. Our team will get in touch and translate your 5 and 5 into a plan.
And if you want a little inspiration while you brew your coffee, go queue up one of the 3CIR videos on leadership, HR, WHS, security, business, marketing, government, or project management. Pick the one that matches your next job title, or be bold and pick the one you don't think you qualify for yet. You might surprise yourself.
Let's answer 2 quick listener questions we get all the time, because they're relevant to the ASQA theme. First, if a provider is cancelled, do I get a refund automatically? Not necessarily automatically. It depends on the situation and consumer law. Document everything and ask. But the critical move is securing your records so your learning and experience can carry forward. That way you're not fighting for both money and momentums.
Second, If my partial course is from years ago, do I have to repeat it all? Not always. Training packages evolve, but competency is competency. We can often align old units to new ones or give you a short bridge. The best way to find out is to show us what you've got and let us do a mapping.
And here's the emotional kicker. Don't let a provider's failure become your failure story. It's just an interruption. People love to tell the tale of how the system did them wrong. It's cathartic, but it doesn't change the future. What changes the future is taking the next right step,
That sounds like a mission brief, and that's a perfect segue to next week's episode, Green Beret Mission to Entrepreneur Vision. We're diving into how to think like an operator in business. Reconnaissance equals market research. Mission planning equals business planning. Battle rhythm equals operating cadence. Debriefs equal continuous improvement. You will walk away with a playbook, not just motivation.
So if you've got a side hustle, a dream, or just an itch to take control of your career, set a reminder. We're bringing heat. And as always, we'll tie it back to how RPL and targeted learning can give you the credentials and confidence to back your moves.
All right, last words on today's subject. If you were ever touched by the Get Qualified Australia cancellations or any provider disruption, you're not alone and you're not stuck. ASQA's role is to protect standards and students. Your role is to protect your evidence and your momentum. Our role at 3CIR is to turn your lived experience into recognized capability, then fill the gaps with flexible, high-quality online learning.
Courage, commitment, camaraderie, integrity, respect. Those 5 aren't just on a wall in our office. They're embedded in how we handle your journey. We'll challenge you, support you, and keep it honest. And if you've listened this far, you're clearly someone who cares about doing this right.
Come say hi, start that RPL assessment, watch a video, ask a question. We'll meet you where you are and help you chart where you're going. And if your old provider was a headache, we'll be your Panadol and your plan rolled into one.
Could be a new tagline there, jury. 3CR, where Panadol meets plan.
We'll work on the branding later. For now, we're grateful you spent this time with us. Keep your head up, your evidence handy, and your goals in sight.
This is Slate.
And this is Jury.
We'll catch you next time for Green Beret Mission to Entrepreneur Vision. Stay sharp, stay kind, and keep moving forward.